I promised a question from the fishbowl. Let's do it here. Pull one
Helmet
out.
of questions.
If the
Okay, drum roll.
if the Jets knew about Aaron Rodgers' plans to go to Egypt the whole time, why did Saul flex was saying it was unexcused? Because it is unexcused. Because there's two types of absences under the collective bargaining agreement. There's you're excused and we're not finding you, or there's unexcused. If you allow Rodgers, listen, could you handle things differently at the podium? You can make arguments on that. But in the end, if a guy doesn't show up for the one mandatory thing, just because he's going on a trip, this isn't childbirth, this isn't death in the family, this is I'm going on vacation. If you don't find him, the next time you do find somebody, number one, somebody might be able to challenge that and file a grievance over it. Number two, it just sends that message that, well, the mandatory stuff isn't really mandatory at all. Again, could they have handled things differently? Sure. And we've yet to have a substantive, long interview with Aaron Rodgers. It'll be fascinating to see the first time that he goes to the podium in training camp, which is about a week away, exactly how Rodgers and the media handle the big storyline from back in June.
We know what he's going to do, right?
I don't. I would never say. I've known, as much as anybody knows Aaron Rodgers, right? I've known Aaron Rodgers since 2007, which was my first year on the Packers beat at the Green Bay Press-Gazette. I don't profess to be close with him or friends with him, but I've spent enough time around him. And he is a very interesting guy who I think it's fair to say is somewhat unpredictable. Sure, you can sit there and say, well, he's going to not take any blame. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do. I mean, you easily could sit back and go, he was at all the non-mandatory stuff. If he missed the week before to go to Egypt and then came back for the mandatory minicamp, it's not a story. So does the week actually matter? The only thing I would say is, for a guy who came out publicly after last season and talked about anything that doesn't have to do with when he has to get out of the building, right. We don't need the distractions. You create the literal definition of a distraction when not only do you take the trip, who cares about where he was? Who cares about the trip? The trip. It's about he made his head coach and his teammates answer for him and speak for him for those 2 days. 31 teams got to take their offseason victory lap. One team had to talk about some guy who wasn't there.
It seemed like everyone knew about this, though, and everyone was cool with it. So why did Saleh go out of his way to point out that it was unexcused?
He was asked, was it excused or not?
You could just not unexcused. You could literally just not answer. Bill Belichick did it for 20 years. You could just not answer the question.
Saul is pretty upfront on a lot of stuff. And so if he said, I'm not going to comment on that, that might raise more questions than is worth it.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.